Hey, this is Professor Homa, and we're going to review some of the processes for going over our logo creation for a restaurant. And the first thing that we did is we looked at logos, and we looked at popular logos, and we also looked at logos that were updated to see what kind of changes they were making, to see what's most current. And some of the ones I have posted on here, ones we talked about. For example, here's Applebees. And we looked at Applebees and noticed some of the differences, and what you'll see in the Applebee's logo, if you just look at it quickly, is you're going to see more cleanliness. It's cleaner. There's more white space. It's a little more open. It's a little more readable at smaller sizes. Font's a little cleaner here than it is on the older one. The A is kind of an odd font here, so it's a little more cleaner. There's a little more flow to it, a little more white space. And you might say, well, why is that? And it's because a lot of these logos have to be seen at small sizes. People are looking at this stuff on their phones. So a lot of these logos not only have to just be updated just for their image, but also so they could be read at small sizes. And also to make them more flexible to be shown on different kinds of items. I mean, they may have to go on hats and menus and uniforms and signs and as apps on phones and all kinds of things. So these logos have to be kind of flexible, so you could change out the green here for white if it's on a darker background. So you could change out the apple, and some of them can even be moved around. We don't need this together is good on here. I don't think they use that even that much. I don't even remember seeing that. But to look at some other examples here, look at Ruby Tuesday, and here's Ruby Tuesday's example, and this was their old version. It just has that kind of almost 60s or 70s kind of old-time look to it. Very distinctive, but also very hard to read and not very easy to read at small sizes. That S gets a little hard to read at small sizes, and the type in general gets hard to read. So they replaced it with this. Looks like just Century School Book, red and black. And I think sometimes they also stack it too. If you do a search of Ruby Tuesday, you'll see it stacked as well. Really clean, easy to read at small sizes. Clean, a little more sophisticated than their old version. And that's what you're starting to see. A little more open. They could sometimes swap out the colors. You could do white and black on a dark ruby background. Again, they're moving away from this. And just to look at some others here, this old kind of Chicago look on this side, you know, it has layers of outlines going around it with that barbershop kind of red slashes going through it. The Fridays has the small I in it, all capital letters with a small I. They have dots in the TGI. It's very ornate, kind of a classic old, maybe like a saloon kind of look. I'm not sure where that comes from, but you can see at small sizes there's a lot of outline in it until you get to TGI Fridays. This version over here, the after, you can see it definitely puts more, it's cleaner, it's simpler. They took away the small I. They put TGI on the side. And it just makes a smaller footprint. I don't know if it's necessarily better, because the red slashes out of that unique or ornate kind of shape almost remind me of like something on a highway that you'd see, kind of a warning on a highway. But anyway, they keep that because that's part of their logo, those red slashes. It's identifiable as TGI Fridays, but in this format now it's a little simpler. So that's what they're going for. It's a little simpler and open. There's no little outline, these little black strokes on here. It can be difficult to reproduce at small sizes. So again, it's easy to see at small sizes. All right, let's take a look at a couple others here. We have Olive Garden. I have it spelled wrong here, but they have IHOP there to look at. But Olive Garden's kind of interesting. They're very detailed kind of original logo here on the before. And they have grapes and, you know, very nice looking logo, but they simplified it. Big change over here. And they still, things they kept the same. They kept a script font, but a little cleaner. It's not as, I guess, angular as the other one. It's a little more up and down, I guess you could say. Italian kitchen instead of Italian restaurant is in there, and they used an olive leaf, an olive branch instead of grapes, which kind of makes sense. It ties together the Olive Garden, and they simplified it. It's kind of using an olivey color and kind of a dark gray color, and it's a little simpler. You might see some people criticizing a little bit, but I think it's definitely cleaner. It's going to look nicer on an app. It's going to look nicer on phones where people are looking to find the nearest Olive Garden. It's cleaner, easier to read, and that's what you're starting to see. It's even open. It's not boxed in. It has movement going all around it, and you're going to see that kind of trend a little bit. Just to look at a few more here, Buffalo Wild Wings. This isn't a big update, but I think it's nice to look at Buffalo Wild Wings. When you look at Buffalo Wild Wings here, this is their old version, kind of like a sunset with the buffalo in it with wings, and then their name, which I like. They have a lot of stuff going on, but now it's simplified. It's going to work better at smaller sizes now. It's easier to read. Buffalo, they pulled Buffalo away from that. They kind of made this icon their image. It's almost like a football. Since they're into wings, beer, and sports, this is almost something that could be on a football helmet. I think I've even seen ads where they show a football helmet with that on there. It almost looks like an NFL logo. So it's kind of a cool logo. They didn't change it much. They put this little bit of gray in there a little bit, and it looks like they changed the Buffalo ever so slightly if you could compare them, but simplified some lines in here. But they basically brought the type out here, used it more of an angular type that kind of matches up with the angles going on in here, which they had over there, but definitely a little bolder, simpler, and it's open. There's nothing boxed in. Nothing's boxed. There's not a box here holding the type. So again, readable at small sizes, clean, having white space flow around it, and easy to read at small sizes. That's what you're starting to see a little bit more. And flexible too, so you could move this. This kind of works independently of this. Whereas here, they all work together. You have to keep them together, and it's hard to separate them. And we'll look at, what else do we have here? Chilies. They have chilies here, which is interesting, where they kind of went from, actually, let me look at the, this is their new one, and it's very clever. This was their previous one. They went to this one, which is, again, cleaner, flat colors like you see on iPhone. Their logo history is interesting. I have that one here. The way they start it, they have some versions here. You know, this version where they had the H going down there through the L and continue. You know, the fact that you could take a logo and remove the word from it. They used to have it as the pepper as the apostrophe. Now it becomes the word because people recognize that as a chili pepper. That's pretty interesting. And they took it one step further to use the apostrophe to be actually the stem on the chili pepper. How simple is that? That's what you're seeing. You're seeing logos that are getting more simplified and clever too. You know, having an apostrophe work as a stem of a chili pepper is pretty clever. If you could look at one letter, an apostrophe, and a shape, and know that that's Chili's restaurant, you know, they could still use it together, but it's reinforcing that look. That's really clever. You know, that's really a nice look instead of having, and it works nice on little app icons on phones. So that's a nice look too. And again, flat colors, flat, bold, RGB colors, no gradients like they have on this. You're not seeing that as much anymore. Less detail. You're seeing cleaner, less detail, easy to reproduce at small sizes. That's a perfect example of that. And there's other links to look at here. There's other, you know, IHOP, there's other restaurant logos to look at. We're going to look at these Angus Steakhouse ones when we work on another practice kind of restaurant logo for Angus Steakhouse. What's nice about this one is when you go in here, there's actually a contest for Angus Steakhouse, and you'll see tons of logos for Angus Steakhouse. And when you go down here, you could go through all these pages of Angus Steakhouse logos, and that's why I had students work on this one too, because they could kind of get some ideas and then come up with their own idea and see how it stacks up with some of the other ideas. And also see what other people are doing as well. So when I go back here, what I also want you to do is watch this video by this guy, this Aaron Draplin. Now, I don't have the sound on right now to go through the recording, but this Aaron Draplin guy looks a little scary at first when you see him, but he's a very good designer, and he goes through the whole process of sketching, which is very important, of having a sketchbook and marking down his ideas, and then he also goes through, you know, building these logos in Illustrator, which again, depending on your experience with Illustrator, it takes a little time to get used to that. But this is a good video, hopefully to get you motivated, and you know, to see that, you know, it's not that hard. And he's doing the same thing. He's simplifying. When you see his logos, they're very simple, clean, iconic kind of logos. You know, no frills, but they work. So that's a good logo to hopefully, or a good video, hopefully to get you motivated to getting started. And looking at some of these links too before we start. Now the first step you're going to do is you're going to make some sketches. Now I have some sketches here, and here's some sketches I made. The first thing we asked you to do was for imaginary place, breakfast barn, and burger house. Now they're not the easiest thing to do, because the burger house, I found that one a little, and here's my sketches of, and again, just little thumbnail sketches. If I zoom out here, you can see this is just on a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I'll zoom in again and go up to, and you'll see my burger house ideas, where I just kind of jotted down some ideas before getting into Illustrator and trying to create a burger. You're spending a half hour making a burger. What if that doesn't work? You know, I always mention the Burger King logo, which is just basically the word Burger King in between buns, which is like the simplest, cleverest logo ever. House, this is a little tricky. You know, we have house kind of cliche things to do. Do you put burger in a house? Do you make a physical burger? You don't want it to look like Burger King either. So, you know, this one was a tough kind of coming up with ideas, but some people came up with nice ideas. You could even, as you're sketching, come up with ideas. Maybe you want burger in a big kind of font, and then house scripty, just kind of figuring out, so that if you know you're going to do a bun or a house, then we're going to draw that when we get into Illustrator. Same thing down here, breakfast barn. I made kind of I was thinking of a barn shape. I was thinking of chickens or chicken head, even a little silo kind of thing. So I worked up some ideas for that, just some sketches, so that when I could get into Illustrator, I could put, lay down breakfast barn. I was thinking of kind of a script. When you think of breakfast barn, you think of kind of a casual, going out to breakfast is kind of a casual, friendly kind of thing with the whole family. It's not real, you don't get super dressed up or anything like that. So I kind of looked up some fonts. And one place, let me mention this too, to go look up fonts, you can go to, there's one called Font Squirrel if you ever need to download free fonts, Font Squirrel. So if you want to look up some script fonts or kind of any fonts that are maybe vintage or retro looking or anything, you could use this, and you could download free fonts from here. There was another one, I forget what it is right now, Da Font. There's another one called Da Font, D-A, and another place where you could kind of look up fonts, and a lot of times you could download some free fonts to kind of work with. And I'm not saying that you want to design your whole design based on a font, but a font will be a big part of it, but get an idea of what you want, so you're not just downloading a bunch of fonts and working around it. When you do your idea, getting back here, when you work on your idea, you want to make sure that your typography is going to be a bold part of it, just like Ruby Tuesday. And whatever icon you use is going to be kind of an accent to it. And I'm saying that because sometimes people have the tendency to draw a barn and put everything inside it, and draw a chicken and put something inside it, and put everything inside it. And what happens when you try to put text inside an image is when you get small, it gets really tiny. So we want kind of icons, simple, clean icons. You saw the ones we just looked at. There was nothing that was really hard to draw or anything. The chili pepper, the apple for Applebees, Ruby Tuesday didn't even have an icon. Any of those are real simple. So that's what we're going for, real simple. So I'm not expecting great illustrations in Illustrator, but just simple kind of things. And I'll show you some kind of simple shapes in Illustrator when I start to develop some of these logos, or at least show you what I did develop.